do you want me to say to you, huh? Give me the magic phrase, sis, to say to make you feel better, and I'll say it.
Tell me to quit feeling sorry for myself. I don't know. Tell me to wake the hell up. Tell me to lose the damn weight.
You could just feel better about yourself if you try to get in shape and got healthy.
Oh man, that's where all the fats and calories is. You know where that comes from? Watching that damn TV.
Dexatrin's amazing. I lost weight without being hungry, and that never happened before.
Diagnosis.
Diagnosing me as what? Fat? All body types are beautiful.
That's true. You also want to be healthy.
Did you take that appetite suppressant I gave you in Dr. McKenzie's orders?
Mother, I'm a growing teenager. I need food.
And you know, what was the third thing?
Lose the damn weight.
You want to say that again?
Every time you turn it on, they got somebody in there talking about lose weight, get healthy, get in shape. Get everybody looking all anorexic talking about that's healthy. I know what healthy is.
I've tried every diet in the world. If it was stand on your head, I tried it. Eat only grapefruits, I tried it.
But the doctor did say if you just lose 25 pounds, you'll be fine. I don't understand why you won't try.
Okay, I feel like you totally missed the point of those Dove ads.
I tell you something else. I don't know why everybody trying to lose weight in the first place. Ain't everybody supposed to be the same size. We're supposed to be all different. Like that Oprah Winfrey. She gonna lose her weight. Wasn't nothing wrong with it. She was fine.
SlimFast is making a pledge. Give us a week, we'll take off the weight.
1 week and the weight was gone.
Don't throw away your fat clothes. Doesn't even matter if you keep the weight off. You'll always be a fat girl. It's just who you are.
I did try. It doesn't work. You don't understand.
It really started to come off and show, and that's when I got really into it. Like, wow, because at the time it was the only thing I could control. I couldn't control what job I got, how my boyfriend treated me, when the next, bill was going to get paid, but I could control what I put in my mouth. And that's, it was definitely like a power trip.
I'm gonna lose the damn weight.
But the most important thing, that the message that we should be sending young girls and young boys is be healthy. It doesn't matter really what your weight is, just be healthy. That's the most important thing.
Ladies and gentlemen, for my final demonstration, look out, David Copperfield. I'm about to make a 400-pound fat man disappear forever!
There is a pattern that emerges anytime a famous fat person loses weight. Whether or not this fat person was someone who spoke openly about being fat or experiencing fat shaming from the public, whether or not they were even that famous, their weight loss will be a nice and easy way for them to receive the spotlight, whether they wanted it or not. Some will speak out about it and talk about their workout regimen or their diet. They'll probably talk about how they're finally taking care of their body and how much better and stronger they feel now.
Even though I was still very confident being bigger and, loved myself, would rock a red carpet, and even though I was probably double the size and sometimes triple the weight of other actresses, but I still felt confident in that. But I knew deep down inside some of the emotional eating behaviors I was doing was not healthy. Like, I did not need a tub of ice cream every night, or, that was me kind of, numbing emotions with using food, which wasn't the healthiest thing.
Usually applying before and after photos as proof. Nowadays, due to social media, where everyone has a chance to loudly voice their opinions on a person's appearance, there will be a small group of people who feel sad, disappointed. Usually these are fat people who are, understandably, sad to see someone they saw as representation conform to the conventional beauty standard.
As for all the attention she's received over her physical transformation, she said she knew it would be a hot topic of discussion.
I'm not shocked or even fazed by it because my body has been objectified my entire career.
Of course, Adele shocked fans back in 2020 when she posted this pic to Instagram on her 32nd birthday, rocking a little black dress. The pic has more than 12 million likes and almost 250,000 comments, mostly about her physique.
It looks really amazing.
And while the public's reaction to Adele's weight loss has been mixed, the Hello singer says she can't take that on.
It's not my job to validate how people feel about their bodies. Ooh. And I feel bad that, it's made anyone feel horrible about themselves. But that's not my job. And I can't I'm trying to sort my own life out. You know, I can't add, can't add another worry and another thing to try and nail. I can't.
Even though this is a finite group of people, people who are not particularly disappointed will deride these people. In conversations around weight loss, health gets brought up quite a bit, but it almost never connects to anything else that is happening in these discussions. People online will proudly tweet and post about how such and such celebrity looks amazing since they've lost weight, but then if people push back, those people are criticized for getting mad about someone just wanting to get healthy. Many people's understanding of health is based purely on the width of a person's waistline. Someone becoming thin is meant to represent someone who has made themselves anew, or at least usually.
I didn't.
What did you do? Tell everybody what's your secret.
I do this dining, this fresh dining delivery where I get food, 1,200 calories a day. I really wanted to get in great shape for this movie. This movie I've been executive producing that premiered this week at Tribeca Film Festival, and I just worked really hard. And I think it's all about reinventing yourself. I've been laying low since finishing my talk show, I guess 3 years ago, and I wanted to come back in a way that people maybe haven't seen me before.
Yes. Well, you look beautiful. Let me just say that.
People who have lost weight often describe their former fatter selves as a person who was not in control. That is how fat bodies have always been seen. Out of control bodies. Uncivilized bodies, as Amy Erdman Farrell describes it in her book Fat Shame. Due to the baked-in idea often rooted in Christianity that having restraint around food makes you morally superior, listening to your hunger cues and eating what you want, when you want, and how much you want is a sign of someone who is unable to control themselves. A good person restricts and denies themselves the pleasure of eating food they actually enjoy. There's a reason chocolate cake is sometimes referred to as devil's food. It's tempting because it's sweet and delicious, which means that it's bad for you, and if you indulge in that, you are a bad person. When someone's body changes, we jump to conclusions. We assume without even talking to this person how they got where they are, and what that says about their character. Even though we live in a country that heavily advertises devil's food in TV and internet ads and billboards and wants us to be tempted by these foods so we'll give these corporations our money, eating this food is meant to define you. You've probably met people who talk about how horrible they feel about themselves when they eat McDonald's or Arby's, even if it's something they don't typically eat. We're conditioned into believing that eating those kinds of foods should elicit feelings of shame and self-hatred. We're conditioned to view people who eat McDonald's or Arby's as fat, lazy, indulgent people with no impulse control. One does not need to actually know the details of a specific fat person's daily diet to presume that person is the way they are because they eat too much. The assumption is never that they might just be fat and eat a normal amount of food every day. It's always they eat too much. They are fat, remember? They're out of control. There's no way anything else could be going on here. When that person loses weight, people come to conclusions that are just as black and white, just as limiting, and just as dangerous.
Oh my God!
Yo. In 2011, Lake joining the cast of Dancing with the Stars season 13, in part to help lose the pounds.
You're gonna get rid of all of this, okay? Because Kirstie Alley is the one that inspired me to do this season, and I'm telling you, that's the first to go.
Throughout the years, she says she's tried all the diet fads.
I've been on every diet, just so you know, like you've followed me my whole life. I've been 260 pounds, I've been 120 pounds, like, and without surgery, without, but I was on Fen Back in the day.
It's going to last. It's not going to be the same,
Yeah. But I mean, do you remember between Hairspray and Crybaby, I gained a lot of weight, and you were worried about me after Divine died?
Well, I was worried. That's the thing today. Even you look at Lizzo and you think it's great, but Lizzo did exactly what Divine did, like be big and, But I guess I was concerned about that too. And then of course what the Enquirer and they always did was in the movie you were supposed to be 8 months pregnant.
Right.
So they would always take that picture of you in character and say, look how much weight she's getting. Not saying that it was a big
I was a
They
cool
would always
260,
use
though.
that in the Enquirer.
He like he's become a skinny bitch. Don't you love it? Look how gorgeous she looks. Look. Fantastic. Go on the front. I worked hard for it, so
You were kind of upset though because you said that during your pregnancy you would gain a lot of weight and that was upsetting you. And you just lost 30 pounds recently.
I lost over 30 pounds.
Story of my life, you guys.
Well, this time around, I started running. I became a runner. I could never run. I could never even run like a half a mile without passing out or wanting to, or throw up.
In 1988, Ricki Lake became well known after her breakout role in John Waters' Hairspray became an instant cult classic.
Fatty, 2x4, can't get through the dressing room door? Hi, I'm Mr. Pinky, owner of the Hefty Hideaway, 3311 Eastern Avenue.
The movie serves as one of the few films during the 20th century that centered on a fat woman who was written as a confident and outspoken rebellious teenager who is desired and gets everything that she wants. An incredibly rare and uncommon story to see in a film even today. Hairspray is special to many because of its fat representation. There aren't any stupid fat suits in the original Hairspray, which is why I've always personally appreciated it just a tad bit more than the 2007 musical. I think it's campier and more self-aware, even if both films have a grating white savior narrative. The race politics of the property, which also includes the Broadway adaptation, are pretty problematic and don't hold up at all, which is why I don't care about it that much. I care more about the fat rep and Tracy Turnblad than anything else. I truly think Tracy Turnblad is one of the best fat characters who is played by an actress who is actually fucking fat and is not like a size 8 or whatever. She's extremely confident and doesn't shrink herself, and she isn't afraid to take up space. Tracy is a hero. She's a heroine, and I think a great role model for young girls.
Finally, all of Baltimore knows I'm big, blonde, and beautiful.
However, that can only go so far. What's interesting but also sad about Tracy Turnblad is the tradition around her casting. Because Ricki Lake was basically a nobody when she got the role in 1987, many Hairspray Broadway productions and live show adaptations have kept up this tradition of casting an unknown fat woman in the role.
And I need her to look at it. It's a new scene.
Okay.
You don't mind just looking at it. And if you will read straight forward to camera.
Okay. The role of Tracy Turnblad in NBC's Hairspray Live will be performed by Maddie Bellio. Oh my gosh! Thank you!
We're so happy to have you.
I want to call my mom. Hello? Hey Mom, I'm Tracy! I love you.
Hey, Nikki. I think that you should probably, make yourself a big ice cream cone because it's you, honey. You got the part.
I literally could not control myself.
She'd never done anything professional, and now her backup cast was John Travolta and Queen Latifah and Michelle Pfeiffer, James Marsden, and Christopher Walken.
And that sounds like a nice tradition, right?
Wrong!
Giving opportunities to young aspiring fat actresses, giving them a chance to play the lead role in a story about triumph in the face of adversity.
My whole life I had to deal with adversity.
It seems nice. It seems inclusive. It seems hopeful. Always. But it never is. Many of these actresses who played Tracy or played the lead in a film about a fat person learning to love themselves did not go on to have big movie careers. Some of them were able to get consistent work, but typically in projects where they play supporting roles. Never really getting a chance to be the lead in a big budget movie ever again. Some get pigeonholed into playing characters whose stories always revolve around their weight. In rare instances, if this fat actress happens to be very funny, white, quote-unquote, pretty for a fat girl, and her fat body is shaped in a way that we deem tolerable from a very fat body, i.e. having big boobs and round hips, she may just become quite famous and might, if she doesn't exactly come out as a fat person, be widely beloved. Like I said, that is a rarity. Which means most fat actresses who have these breakout moments and receive praise and sometimes accolades for playing an inspirational character will need to conform, lean into playing funny, supportive fat person roles, or expect to fade into obscurity. Ricki Lake learned this the hard way.
The overweight girl from upstate New York was finally on her way. And in a business that thrives on anorexic good looks, Ricki's weight didn't work against her, it worked for her.
I do believe you need a gimmick in this business. I think so much of it is, okay, what makes you different from everybody else? And for a long time, what made me different was because I was overweight and I was, funny and I was, cute, and non-threatening. So I had all these qualities that I think really worked and everyone got a kick out of and it worked for a number of years. I'd say 3 years. I worked nonstop.
She was not the blonde, blue-eyed ingenue that was so popular in the days. I mean, I think she was the first to really make it as a heavy actress. It got to the point where they were looking for Ricki Lake types, and that's quite a statement.
In a 1998 episode of Intimate Portrait, a Lifetime biological docuseries that focused on famous successful women, Ricki Lake opened up about what led to her dramatic weight loss in the early 90s.
But Ricki's role only lasted 1 year. She was not asked back for a second season. And suddenly, the offers stopped coming. Ricki could not find a job. Her gimmick wasn't working anymore.
And then after a while, it kind of was like, oh, we know Ricki, she's not right for this. And I think they got tired of it, and I think I needed to change the gimmick. And I sat around and I called my agents, and there's something about this business that is so cold. And yeah, when you're hot, but when you're not, man, is it cold. And I would call my agent, and basically they wouldn't return my calls, and it was a horrible experience, and it really taught me a lot about what to expect from people and what to expect from this business. And you don't expect anything.
What happened was her weight became a hindrance to her. And she was not getting parts because she was too heavy. She was going along eating and enjoying life and thinking everything was wonderful. But it came to a point where things completely turned around. And that was a very difficult point and time in Ricki's life, I think.
Well, that's when I lost everything, because I bought a house based on my gig on China Beach. I was really, like I said, I was really naive, and I was, 19 years old shopping for a house. I suddenly had all this money. I bought this tremendous house in Hollywood Hills, and I had no business buying that. What did I need a 19-year-old with no kids, no family, no nothing, need a 3-bedroom house for? But I did it, and it was in the end, I think I lost over $300,000 on that one thing. Yeah, it was costly, but cheap. So I'm really glad that it happened the way it did.
What's really sad to me is the way she talks about feeling naive for buying this expensive house at such a young age. Not sad because I think that was a smart financial decision, but because being in Hairspray and being able to get consistent work for that brief moment in time made her think that she was going to have a career that would justify and support this purchase. Ricki was excited to use her unconventional body to get consistent roles in film and television as the funny fat girl. But that obviously didn't pan out like she hoped, and so she did what she felt she had to do to get work. Ricki has been open about the fact that she did not exactly lose that weight in a healthy way, but even during that transparency, the overarching message is that it was still the best thing that ever happened to her. She felt better about her appearance and wasn't shy about that feeling. The media wasn't shy either. Ricki losing weight was, of course, plastered all over magazines and newspaper headlines.
It was during this lowest point of her life when she decided to reinvent herself.
Well, I decided to get my ass on a diet. That, in a nutshell. I mean, that was, like I said before, this gimmick thing, and that I really believe strongly, and I still do. I still think, okay, now I'm a talk show, there's categories for everybody. And I wanted to do it. I'd always wanted to do it, but now I really was left with kind of no choice. And it seemed to go by quickly, but I know it was probably over a period of months that I lost the first 50 pounds. I couldn't lose. I must have been about 270 pounds, 260, I don't know. I never got on a scale, but I'm estimating. And I wouldn't eat out. I don't cook, so I would just eat very little. I mean, I really didn't do it the healthiest way. I mean, I fainted in a couple stores. I mean, I was really not well.
Despite the danger to her health, Ricki continued to try and lose weight. It became the focal point of her life. In the end, Ricki went from this to this and lost over 100 pounds in the process.
All of a sudden you realize, what a different person she is. I think you get so much more self-confidence when, you lose 120 some odd pounds or 115 pounds. You're half the person you were. It's incredible.
It was a very empowering experience to go through that and to make that change on my own and to do it all by myself. No one helped me. There was no real support system. I didn't go to, any OA meetings or anything like that. So it was a great accomplishment. And at the time, I thought that it was my biggest accomplishment. I remember saying, having a talk show is easy, losing weight, that's hard, and keeping it off. And it has been hard.
In spite of the fact that she lost a significant amount of weight in a relatively short amount of time and admitting that she did not lose it in a healthy way, her story, like almost all weight loss stories, is presented as a success, as inspiration. And even though Ricky did go on to have a successful and memorable talk show, she never really had a successful film career. Her first husband turned out to be a hater.
From the time they were first boyfriend and girlfriend, both Ricky and Rob have had to learn how to live together in the Ricky Lake spotlight.
It's really hard. I mean, to this day, it's still, you know, he doesn't want to be known as Mr. Ricky Lake. He has his own career, and he's extremely talented in his own right. So, you know, but I think we've actually been really healthy about dealing with, you know, the discrepancies in money and, you know, getting all this attention. And lots of times we go to events and parties with, you know, people, and, you know, they shake his hand and they're looking at me. They're not even acknowledging him, and that hurts.
The pressures of celebrity have at times placed a strain on their relationship. Marriage therapy has helped them get through some of the rough spots.
And like Oprah, she spent years trying to maintain that weight loss she'd achieved in the early 1990s. But every time she loses weight, it is presented as a success story, despite these constant updates inadvertently being evidence of its failures. There are articles dating back to 2004 talking about how Ricky Lake just lost X amount of pounds, how happy she is about those pounds disappearing, and how nice it feels to be a size 6 versus a size 22.
And I started, and I set this goal for myself. I didn't work this summer. I was just with my kids and on a treadmill. And I got up to, run 3 miles every day.
Good for you. That's fantastic.
Thanks. Yeah, I feel great.
5 days a week?
Every day, 7
days a week.
Every day. I mean, pretty
No
much every day.
rest?
This morning, you know, I made a big sacrifice. I came here instead of going to the gym, but
That's why I
every
never
day.
do it. I come here all the time instead of
You don't have to. You look amazing.
She's
You look
naturally femme.
amazing.
So
But
you're
you
still
know,
eating the
well,
same things?
You know what, you guys? I feel like I need to change it up, and it's the bane of my existence. It's a nightmare dealing with being on television and dealing with my weight. I hear you did Atkins, right? You just lost it. I'm day 3 of Atkins, which thanks.
Only when a woman talks about diet do people go berserk. Yes!
But you know, and even though I'm down to a size 8, I still look in the mirror and don't exactly love what I see, which is, you know,
But
something
that's
I'm
a head
trying,
thing.
I'm trying to overcome. I'm sorry?
You're a size 8 and you're on a diet?
I'm trying to overcome this, but you know, I feel
I think you got to overcome something else with it.
But she has to maintain her size 8 because she has chubby genes in her background,
Oh,
right? Yeah. That's why it's a problem.
No chubby genes today, but yes, there are chubby genes in my family, and obviously my
Ricky,
body would love to be. Yes.
Please.
I know, you hate talking about this.
You know why? Because you sound like a crazy woman. You're sitting here, you're a size 8, you got 2 kids, you're married to the man that you love, you got a show, you're rich. Shut the hell up.
I don't need to complain. Have a good time. I do have a good.
Last year, she came out again to talk about how she and her partner lost 30 pounds and how this is the healthiest way she's lost weight in years. So aside from being the original Tracy Turnblad, her infamous talk show, and her documentary about home births, I suppose, Ricky Lake is mostly known for being a former fat person. It's something that's followed her for years. It's something that she seems to feel the need to announce every time she loses weight. And every time the media is there to report on it.
Ricky Lake before, and just take a look at her after. A brand new woman with a brand new body. Today in part 4 of our Weight Loss Week, the remarkable story of how Ricky finally got a hold of her life and finally lost those extra pounds.
What was your biggest size?
24. I was 260 pounds in a size 24, and now I'm 120 something, and I'm. This is me. I mean, I can't believe how
half your size, or even
I'm less than half my
smaller.
size. Yeah.
Wow.
This is the thinnest I've ever been in my life.
In a society obsessed with thinness and weight loss, those are stories the public is always eager to hear. Even if those people don't have a success story ready when their new appearance becomes public knowledge. For example, when Adele lost weight years back, before she ever even opened up about it, everyone online jumped to the usual conclusions. They boldly asserted how much better she looked now, not once thinking about how she would feel hearing those things. Author, activist, and podcaster Aubrey Gordon wrote an article addressing the issue, and Adele herself responded saying thank you. Even though Adele did later address her weight loss, she was not given a chance to construct the narrative around it. Everyone else had done it for her already. To us, weight loss can only have one story. It can only provide one explanation. The story is always a successful one, and the explanation is almost always one of hard work and tenacity. Even if Ricky has told us that she has engaged in disordered eating to achieve weight loss, even if she gained the weight back many times, this narrative of success and hard work must remain. Part of that narrative is what it is meant to reflect on other fat people who haven't lost weight. Part of that narrative is the rules we feel we need to follow when we lose weight or when we're confronted with someone who has lost weight. That person must talk about it, must have a success story, must not have taken the easy way out, i.e. weight loss, surgery, or diet pills, and must have a conventionally attractive body to show off afterwards. The people in this person's life are meant to heap praise upon them for their hard work, tell them how much better they look now, and validate the negative body image they possibly had pre-weight loss. Former fat people are expected to distance themselves away from other fat people and or become the very person who probably once made them feel terrible about their body. This is what I meant when I said health is completely disconnected from any of this. What is healthy about plastering before and after photos on the covers of magazines? What is healthy about Oprah bragging about losing 60 pounds on a 600-calorie diet? What is healthy about presuming the cause of someone's weight loss without any prior information? What is healthy about people feeling disconnected from their own community because they have a different body now, and thus causing them to look down on those people? What is healthy about weight fluctuation? All of this is meant to reinforce the fantasy of weight loss. That fantasy includes this idea that weight loss, no matter how it happened, is healthy and that you are better on every front imaginable because of it. This fantasy doesn't acknowledge how class plays a role in someone's ability to keep the weight off long term. It doesn't include stories from people who aren't happy about their weight loss. It doesn't acknowledge people's health can often worsen as a result. And it hardly ever unpacks the social impacts of weight loss. The impact of having your before and after photo on the front page of every magazine, and the guilt and shame you feel when that weight inevitably comes back and feeling the need to lose it again, to show everyone that you're not weak, that you have tenacity, you have willpower, and you can stay in control.
Yeah,
I don't see
but
that
it's
as a
not.
costume.
It's not as subversive, and I think, like, I don't know. They're very different times. Obviously, rhetoric about fatness is starting to get like more sort of incisive, sort of post 80s, and like Ricky Lake had a really hard go of it. Like, she was the poster child for crash dieting. She lost like 100 pounds in the early 90s, and then she gained weight back, and she got pregnant, and then she had to go on talk shows and promise that she was going to try to lose weight again, and then she became the face of like 2 diets.
God.
Then she maintained, so then she's like a success story. And then she had like alopecia, and she like shaved her head. Like, she's been through so much image wise post Hairspray, and I don't want to say like as a result of Hairspray, because that's a pretty hard line to draw, I think.
Yeah.
But it is interesting that, like, I mean, Ricky Lake's performance is more subversive, her body's treated more subversively, and then she has this like really painful trajectory, like, as well, that I don't know, is at least reflective of something about that,
Yeah.
I probably don't need to explain the plot of The Nutty Professor, considering I have explained it in like 2 other videos. But the 1996 remake is about a fat science professor named Sherman Klump who develops a weight loss serum that turns him into a skinny shadow of his former self. Really hope I haven't said that already before. The film came out during the early stages of the obesity epidemic, which was happening alongside the heroin chic era. This movie literally parodies Richard Simmons, the late fitness instructor who at the time was famous for his workout tapes. Sherman, before becoming Buddy Love, is a kind, mildly depressed, and lonely man who spends his nights watching movies and eating junk food in a very slovenly way, a way meant to gross us out. As with Shallow Hal, Sherman's body is treated by the film as an inconvenience to him and other people around him. His body constantly puts him and other people who are with him in embarrassing situations. On top of that, his boss shouts at him and fat shames him regularly. He undermines his intelligence and hard work simply because he is fat, even though his belly does cause the lap rats to get loose from their cages from time to time. In a few different scenes throughout the movie, we spend time with Sherman's family members, most notably his mom and dad. Sherman's mom, who is also fat, is implied to be responsible for Sherman's weight. Even in his nightmare where he imagines himself as King Kong, we see her offering him some fried chicken. It's a very common media trope to blame mothers for their child's body size, and sometimes even their husbands. During their family dinners, we see his father, also fat, complaining about the public's obsession with thinness, while surrounded by an abundance of food that has often been deemed bad or unhealthy by white society. In some ways, we're meant to view this fat family as bad influences on each other, Sherman tries to lose weight by working out, but we also see him indulging in junk food and watching the knockoff Richard Simmons tapes and listening to fat people cry about being fat. We see him empathizing with them, even if it's also played as a joke. I want you to keep this in mind as we move forward, because Sherman, who hasn't been able to lose that much weight and has seemingly tried everything, creates a weight loss serum that instantly and drastically changes his body and his personality. Even though he becomes a conceited and arrogant asshole, Sherman, or should I say Buddy Love, is living the life he always dreamed of. He now has the confidence to stand up to his boss and to ask out his colleague Carla Purdy. And in one of the most memorable scenes from the movie, he gets back at the stand-up comedian who relentlessly fat-shamed him on his first date with Carla. At this point, we're supposed to be on his side until Buddy is shown to be a selfish asshole. Carla becomes disgusted at how rude he is and is turned off when she learns he had a threesome. In one scene, we see him ridiculing the appearances of innocent people just trying to have dinner while trying to sell his weight loss serum. I have said that word way too much, it's starting to sound weird. But he becomes cartoonishly evil and plans to kill off the real fat version of himself so that he can remain as Buddy Love forever, so he could be thin forever. Again, this is framed as evil and selfish, but why? The movie ends with Sherman fighting for his life, literally as he tries to break through Buddy Love before he kills him off forever. This long fight, which disrupted this event, whatever the fuck it is, ends with Sherman Klump himself in the flesh, beating Buddy Love after remembering the encouraging words of knockoff Richard Simmons. Everyone is shocked to realize that Sherman was Buddy Love the entire time, so he puts on his glasses, clears his throat, and shamefully explains the reasons behind his selfish actions. He says Buddy Love was who he thought everyone wanted him to be, and I suppose we were meant to think that that was all in his head. It's confusing. Maybe his family didn't care about him being thin, which is good. Maybe Carla doesn't give a fuck, which is also good. But the rest of the world was not okay with his size. During his speech, Sherman says life is not about being happy about how much you weigh, but being happy with yourself as you are. So the movie is trying to say that Sherman's fixation on weight loss made him lose sight of the fact that he just needed to learn to love himself. His obsession with rapid weight loss is what drove him to be selfish with this serum and almost ruined everyone's evening. Afterward, he tells Carla that he will lose weight, but is always going to be fat, and whoever he ends up with is just going to have to be okay with that. I have said many times that this is not a terrible message. What I don't like, though, is the underlying message that is being sent here. Sherman is a fat black man, working in an academic setting around a bunch of white people. His boss hates him because he's fat and has even threatened to kill him because he is fat and clumsy. Because he is fat. Like, all of his problems in this movie are due to his fatness, and yet him going to desperate measures to lose weight is written to be this incredibly selfish and ridiculous thing for him to do, and not something he is clearly being pressured to do. Remember earlier how I pointed out the scenes where he cries while eating candy, donuts, and ice cream? This was meant to show us how uncommitted Sherman was to actually losing weight the hard way. Before his last binge, we see Sherman working out at the gym, or trying to, running around campus like Rocky and being proud of himself. But then he goes on that date with Carla, is fat-shamed by the stand-up comedian played by Dave Chappelle, and feels so badly about himself that he eats his feelings. He falls asleep and has nightmares related to him being too fat to live a normal and happy life, and this is what finally pushes him to try and perfect the serum so he can lose weight. The idea here is that fat people are fat because of their own bad decisions, their lack of impulse around food, and their laziness. This is a body that is out of control, so when he tries to take the quote-unquote easy way out, he must then be punished for being so selfish. He is forced to revert back to his former fat self because he did not earn that thin body. Weight loss is a spectacle, and part of that is spectators trying to discern how exactly this person lost weight. If it feels implausible to people, they might question whether or not they did it the hard way.
Her husband also needing to make a change.
We're in our 50s and we want to, as happy as we are, we want to live as long as we can, as vitally and like with the vitality and youthfulness and feeling good in our bones.
A doctor suggested the pair use medication to lose weight.
He was pushing it hard on both of us.
Oh, the doctor was
pushing it. We both were overweight and yeah.
Originally meant to treat patients with type 2 diabetes.
The latest game-changing weight loss drug.
Ozempic, Wegovy, and Mounjaro are drugs experiencing a big surge in use for weight loss.
Ozempic and drugs like it have taken the nation by storm. A growing list of celebs slimming down. Even Oprah opening up about using a prescription weight loss medication in a recent primetime special. Lake, who says she's perimenopausal, says the doctor claimed the drug was the only way she could lose the weight, but she thought differently.
I like a challenge, and I like proving people wrong, and so it pissed me off, and I wanted to give it a go on my own. And so I said to my husband, you want to go on this ride with me? And he's like, sure.
For the past 7 months, the couple diving into a completely new, healthy lifestyle.
You know, I understand, like, I am privileged, I have the resources and money, and so I hired a personal chef who was cooking for us. So that was like, because I didn't want to feel deprived.
And it sounds to me like you weren't looking for a crash diet or a quick fix. You were looking really for
For
like
lifestyle
a lifestyle change.
Yes, yes. This is a lifestyle change. And so I live in this beautiful hills of Malibu. I hike, rain or shine, every single morning. In fact, this morning I was out the door at 6:30 with my dog and doing my 3-mile hike.
The two also starting intermittent fasting, cutting out bread and sugar as part of their keto diet, exercise, including Pilates and sleep tracking.
See, we are so obsessed with upholding thin supremacy that we view the thin body as sacred. Something special that one must actually work for. A former fat person who took diet pills or got surgery isn't a real after photo. They're not a real skinny person. But even when people lose it without all of those things, it's almost as though they're always seen as someone who used to be fat. As Aubrey Gordon has often said, fat people are seen as failed thin bodies. There's a thin person inside of you trying to get out. And if you happen to lose weight, now there's a fat person inside of you who you must make sure never comes back out. The weight loss fantasy tries to tell you that it's easy to keep that fat person at bay, but it isn't. And the weight loss serum is proof of that. Throughout the movie, Buddy's real fat self threatens to come back out, and he must continue taking the serum for the rest of his life if he wants to stay thin. Jason, his nerdy white assistant or something who knows that Buddy loves Sherman, informs Sherman of how awful Buddy is, and that the testosterone levels in the serum are just too high. Upon learning this, Sherman feels a little guilty, but is quick to confess that being Buddy felt incredible. It felt incredible to be treated with dignity and respect. Most of all, Sherman's never been in love.
I guess you're right, Jason. I never have behaved like this before. But on the other hand, I've never been in love before.
So he is willing to give up his true self for this new self, who is not a nice, good, or considerate person just so he can reap the rewards that thinness sometimes brings. Jason asks him why he won't just ask Carla out if he likes her, as if he can't see what Sherman looks like. And I don't mean that to fat shame. I mean, it's not a real fat person anyway. What I mean is he is a fat man who has a crush on this skinny woman. He's probably dealt with a lot of rejection in his life because of the way we are conditioned to be repulsed by fatness and fat people. Like, why is the movie acting like he's just being a pussy or something? The movie wants to sympathize with Sherman to some extent, but not enough to have actual empathy and compassion for why he would go to such extremes to lose weight. I believe Sherman says that he's been fat his entire life. Lifelong fat people have a much harder time losing weight and keeping it off, and I do not doubt Sherman has in fact tried everything. Making a weight loss serum makes sense, even if it makes him a dick. The film ends with Sherman telling everyone that he just needs to learn to love himself. He doesn't ask everyone to treat him better. He doesn't even call them out. He just points the finger at himself, and this is a frustrating pattern in a lot of movies that center fat people. In many weight loss stories, there's this constant running theme of self-love. In order for fat people to be able to lose weight the right way, they must learn to love themselves first. They're fat, and they know what comes with being fat, so complaining and pointing fingers at others is seen as a fat person not willing to take responsibility for their own quote-unquote bad decisions. It's not the world that needs to change, it's you. Another film that also plays into this narrative is Brittany Runs a Marathon, which came out in 2019. Like I Feel Pretty, which came out the year before, this movie thinks it's doing something when it isn't. Unsurprising, since both films are written and directed by thin people. This is honestly why there are a lot of fat people who cannot stand when thin people try to do body positivity like in their music, because they don't actually seem to get it, and their idea of a self-love body positive message is usually very shallow. The movie opens with Brittany going to her doctor, hoping to get some Adderall, and learns to her dismay that she's fat.
Oh, you're 5'6", 197 pounds.
your body mass index is high, and that can cause a disruptive sleep pattern.
What is what?
A healthy BMI is around 25. Yours is 31, 32.
This happens at the top of the movie, and already I was checked out, because why do thin people consistently write fat people like this? For one, Brittany's character is every fat stereotype. She's fat, she eats a lot, she's funny, she doesn't have a ton of stamina, she's never dated, and she has a shitty job. And on top of that, her doctor diagnoses her with every kind of disease that is associated with fat people. Which is absurd because, like I said, she is a mid-sized person. Brittany and I are kind of in the same weight class. She's a bit taller than me, 5'6", but we learned she's just under 200 pounds, which is my size. Now, obviously, we don't literally have the same body because we have different genetics, and she's also not a real fat person. But there are moments in this movie where they make it seem like she's actually just under 300 pounds. Like, there's a throwaway line later in the film where she mentions having to wear a seatbelt extender. Are you fucking serious? I have never needed a seatbelt extender. Like, ever. Maybe the seating where she lives are for babies because she's also not that wide. She's a very straight-sized person. This is a movie written by people who seem to think being under 200 pounds is akin to being 300 pounds when it isn't. Second point, why is Brittany acting like she doesn't know she's chubby? Why is she acting like she's never heard of the BMI? Like, the way this is written is as though Brittany never knew that being fat was quote-unquote bad. And that's why I checked out. I mean, I watched the movie twice all the way through, but I checked out mentally. I knew from that scene alone that this movie was going to be incredibly predictable and perpetuate the same message we'd heard before. Hey, thin people, listen up, okay? Fat people are aware that they are fat. There is no way in the world that a fat person does not know that they are fat. There is no way that a fat person doesn't know about the BMI. There is no way that a fat person hasn't experienced this kind of weight stigma from their doctor unless they just don't ever go to the doctor. Maybe this was Brittany's first time at the doctor or something. Yeah, let's go with that.
Yeah, I need to get a teeny bit healthier. The doc says I'm a big fat pig.
I personally am tired of weight loss movies, but consistently writing fat people as if the reason they are fat is because they just don't know that it's quote-unquote unhealthy is just insulting at this point. But whatever, Brittany's never seen a weight loss ad nor has gone to the doctor, so this is big news for her. What's kind of interesting is that we don't learn that much about Brittany as a person and how she felt about herself before this scene with the doctor, because she begins to feel deeply self-conscious of her weight. She even breaks down crying at one point because she feels like everyone in her life is getting married and having children. When she's walking down the sidewalks of New York, she sees her distorted reflection on a vendor's food cart. It's like that one scene from that really fat-phobic episode of The Suite Life of Zack and Cody where London and Maddie think they're fat or whatever. It's very strange. I've never understood this trope or whatever you're supposed to call it. Why would you be insecure about a distorted reflection? That's obviously not what you look like. Like, that's so stupid, and I'm honestly starting to feel like it's kind of sexist. But all of these things are what push Brittany to try and lose weight, and so she begins running and makes some running friends, and from here becomes interested in participating in the New York Marathon thing. It is a pretty straightforward weight loss story. Brittany, of course, begins losing weight while avoiding the food she used to eat. Like most people who try to lose weight, she does very unhealthy things to maintain her weight loss. She overexerts herself to the point of getting a stress fracture. When she gains back 1 pound, she immediately puts on her workout clothes to go for a run outside. But it's fine because Brittany is finally experiencing thin privilege. People open doors for her and she starts dating for the first time in her life. But this weight loss also causes Brittany to blatantly express her internalized anti-fat bias when at her brother-in-law's birthday party. A fat woman named Jasmine and her thin partner, don't remember his name, sorry, are there sitting at the table with them, and she just starts fat-shaming her and making fun of them as a couple, saying that she's just saying what everyone thinks when people look at the two of them. It's really mean and kind of made me hate her, not gonna lie. The woman's husband hardly stands up for his wife, I assume she is, and she starts crying and leaves the table as Brittany continues to yell fat-phobic shit at her. Now, she was drunk, but still. Afterward, her brother-in-law confronts her and tells her she's gonna need to apologize, and asks when she became so judgmental. After the two have a talk about how Brittany needs to stop pushing people away and let good people in, he, out of nowhere, is just like, you wanting to change your life and run this marathon was never about the weight. It was about you taking responsibility for yourself. And this leads to Brittany throwing out her scale. That's probably the only thing this movie does that I appreciated. I also don't have a scale in my house because I know I would be on that thing every day and that number would be on my mind all day. But it's not true that this wasn't about her weight. It absolutely was. Her doctor told her that she was too fat at 197 pounds and she began to feel insecure about how she looked and started to obsess over how much weight she was losing as she was training for this marathon. It would have made more sense if he'd said this shouldn't have been about the weight, but about you finding a new passion or hobby, I don't know. It just feels like bullshit to have her now as a thin person suddenly decide that actually this was all about taking responsibility, like, whatever. You could take responsibility as a fat person too. It is possible. The writers of this movie clearly think that attaining thinness is a sign of someone taking care of themselves. Whenever someone gains weight, it's quickly perceived as someone letting themselves go. You gained weight, so there must be something wrong. You must be depressed or something, or you must not love yourself, or you must not be taking responsibility for your life. Or, my favorite, you must have some deep-seated trauma and you're just eating your feelings. This whole mini plot with the fat woman, I guess, is there so that Brittany can learn self-acceptance. Brittany sends her a note saying that she's sorry and that she just wishes she had what Jasmine has. And she sends her a letter back, not saying, fuck you, you stupid cunt, like I would have written, but that she is used to experiencing weight discrimination, but is happy with herself now, and this plus what her brother-in-law said is what makes her throw out the scale and not fixate so much on her weight. The movie ends with us fast-forwarding a year later to Brittany running the marathon, suffering a cramp, but being cheered on by her friends and encouraged to keep going, and she does, and makes it over the finish line. Shocker. She also starts dating this guy named Jern, and it is implied that he's planning to propose to her in the final scene. The end. So something I didn't know before doing some cursory research for this film was that it is based on a true story of a woman who was unhappy with her life and her body and trained for a marathon. I don't know if this woman was actually fat or if she just didn't like her body because they don't really say in the article talking about the real Brittany. I'm not sure what was particularly unique about what she did that someone decided to write a movie about it. As much as I dislike Brittany and as much as I agree that throwing out the scale was a healthy choice, I do still feel for her because Brittany was just doing what we expect fat people to do when they're trying to lose weight. People do expect them to starve themselves and or deprive themselves of the food they really enjoy, to push themselves to the brim and ignore their body telling them they need to sit the fuck down, and then getting a stress fracture. Even just getting into exercise without even announcing weight loss plans, people expect you to lose weight. I remember one year I was telling my mom I wanted to start exercising more because I hate exercising, but I need to. I can't do treadmills and stuff really, it's too boring and requires way too much stamina. I thought playing Just Dance and doing yoga would be a more fun way to get my body moving, and my mom instantly was just like, you're gonna lose so much weight. And I was just like, I'm not trying to lose weight, I just want to exercise. So it's weird for her brother-in-law to be like, this was never about your weight, when that's bullshit. It's always about weight for most people, even if we don't want it to be. Instead of this being a film where Brittany laments about the pressures to fixate on your weight as a non-skinny person, or how it was her doctor who made it about her weight in the first place, and how maybe it causes more harm than good for doctors to tell their patients to lose weight without any actual guidance on how to achieve that in a quote-unquote healthy way. It's instead about how you shouldn't rush weight loss. That's literally one of the taglines for the film on some of the promotional photos. This movie suffers similar issues as movies like Barbie or Night Bitch or Booksmart or Don't Worry Darling, where it's trying to say something, but it's saying it in such a clumsy way that the message just feels hollow, because the writers don't seem to have a deep or complex understanding of what they're even trying to say. You can't really write a meaningful anti-diet film if you as a thin person clearly hold some anti-fat beliefs. That is evident in one of the first scenes with the doctor, him listing off every fat person disease that she's at risk of, or making her a glutton who eats food out of the garbage, and writing that she's never had a boyfriend, which isn't unrealistic for a lot of people, but it's very cliche. Fat people have dating lives, you guys, and it actually would be so much more interesting if we could also portray what it is like to date as a fat person, even if that is presented as unpleasant, because frankly it can be for a lot of fat people, including myself. As a tragically straight woman, you often get hypersexualized when you're bigger or curvier, and there are men who won't approach you in real life, but will talk to you in private, like on social media or dating apps. And it unfortunately does begin to fuck with you. This is something I actually appreciated about the show Shrill with Aidy Bryant. It starts off with her breaking up with her fuck buddy or whatever he is. Always after they have sex, he makes her leave his house out the back door so no one will see that he fucks fat women. She ends up getting pregnant, and after getting an abortion, she has this newfound confidence, which I also really loved, even though that show is kind of meh. Because there are so many abortion plots where the woman becomes depressed forever afterward, when typically a lot of women feel relief. Annie instead feels more self-assured, and the episode ends with her breaking up with him and basically telling him that she deserves better than someone who's going to make her leave out the back door. Sure, it wasn't like amazing, I'm happy it exists, but I think it was doing more than what I Feel Pretty and Brittany Runs a Marathon thought they were doing. It also stars not one, but two actual fat women.
That's one bet. Two bets. Three fabulous flyers.
Brittany Runs a Marathon maintains this collective lie we all keep telling ourselves. That weight loss has nothing to do with a number on a scale, and any fat person trying to rush the process is too focused on vanity. The movie makes it seem like Brittany being happy that being thin benefited her socially is her being vain and not her holding a mirror up to a fucked up society that treats fat people and people who aren't conventionally attractive like shit.
It's really nice to be a woman for once. People held doors for me.
I honestly don't super duper have a problem with the idea of a film about a fat woman having a weight loss journey. I just wish it didn't have to always end with them becoming thin, because we've seen that before. And if it's really about health, then it shouldn't always end with the lead character getting skinny. It would just be nice if we could see how these kinds of weight loss tactics actually play out for most people. And there was actually a show that inadvertently managed to do just that.
I think the show, well, the series was more focused on the show, and I wanted to talk about how, like, if we're talking about truly how harmful it was, there's a lot missing. I feel like we could have had some more episodes. I understand budget and stuff, but to do something like this, either you're going to do it or you're going to do it right. Like, and the last episode was about weight loss medication, how unhealthy it was, how many people were a part of the gaining weight. They had gained a lot of weight back, and they did not have health, were not quote unquote healthy after that. Like, they put on more weight, and then they had other issues because of all of the things they experienced. We didn't get a chance to hear from a lot of these folks. And I understand that we're not going to hear from each and every individual, but to kind of rush that, so like they rushed it. So we got Wegovy and all these other medications and things, but we could have got into a whole episode about that.
But you know what? I actually do imagine that they reached out to a lot more contestants, and I'm willing to bet money that a lot of those contestants said absolutely not.
I wonder why.
Because they're fat. Like, these are people who got on the cover of magazines, who were invited to Ellen DeGeneres and Jimmy Fallon and all these other like talk shows, and they became mini celebrities.
A symbol of health.
For becoming thin, symbolizing what is possible for fat people who just put in the work, and then they gain all that weight back, and then they gain all that weight back and more.
So recently, Netflix released a 3-episode docuseries that serves as a retrospective on the infamously abusive reality TV show, The Biggest Loser. Yes, that's right. I said abusive. The title serves as a bit of a double entendre. The premise of the show is simple. Fat people competing over who can lose the most weight over the span of 30 weeks. During the show, we watch the contestants be split into teams with Bob Harper and Jillian Michaels as their trainers. The contestants are subjected to a series of tests and challenges and are expected to do weigh-ins regularly. The series, which first aired in 2004, had 17 seasons over the course of 12 years, ending in 2016. The show was obviously very popular, so popular that the show became a brand. They sold games, cookbooks, and workout equipment. It became a part of pop culture. In the show, people who won The Biggest Loser took home $250,000 and would get their 15 minutes of fame. They would get invited on talk shows and got to be on the covers of magazines. Their names forever associated with the reality TV show. Two of the most famous people to come out of this show are Jillian Michaels and Bob Harper. Jillian Michaels was essentially the mean gym teacher stereotype. Mean, hot-headed, unempathetic, evil.
Again! What's more important for weight loss? We all know it's diet.
But that becomes boring television. You know what's not boring television? To see us in a gym yelling, screaming. That's inspirational. That's good TV.
I don't care if your neck breaks in half.
You ain't puking. You're fake puking. Now get over here. Producers love that shit. They were like, we want them to puke. We want the madness of it all.
Bob, for some reason, was seen as the good cop to her bad cop, even though he also frequently screamed at the contestants, most notably a black woman named Joelle, who appeared in the documentary. The executive producers of The Biggest Loser, David Broom and JD Roth, also appear in the doc and shamelessly admit to encouraging the toxic and abusive environment on the show, while also claiming the show was meant to help change people's lives and provide an aspirational picture for fat people watching at home. David says he got the idea for the show when he visited a gym and saw that someone posted a note asking for help with their weight.
But they were able to frame it like that because we want to be entertained.
So, for me, this was so incredibly frustrating because I think what The Biggest Loser speaks to is white people's inability to be anything other than a white savior. Because when David Broom, or Brome, however you pronounce his last name, said, one of the executive producers said that he was that he started the show because someone at the gym posted on the bulletin in his gym that they were quote unquote obese and needed help. Instead of him taking it upon himself to try to help that individual, he saw it as an opportunity to make money off of the backs of fat people and claim that it was for our salvation, for our lives and our livelihood. And that for me was like, I think that was one of the most jarring things about the entire documentary, is learning that that was how the show even came about. Because in what world does it make sense to say, hey, I'm not going to actually help the person who's asking for help. I'm going to take this person's idea, monetize it for my own personal gain, capitalize off of it to become rich, and then push the very people who come to this place as vulnerable as they are into a corner to be by themselves after the show is done, right?
We learn about this temptation room, which I'm sure you can guess is just a room full of delicious, sugary, salty food. An all-you-can-eat buffet that the contestants can indulge in if they want a chance to go home and see their families.
I needed the show to be relatable to the rest of the world who aren't in this dome that we've created. You pass a cupcake in your refrigerator or on your counter, or you pass that fast food store or restaurant on your way home from work. How can we get that in The Biggest Loser?
I've been a fat person for a long time. That's not a real life scenario that I have encountered. I don't frequently step into rooms with unguarded daises full of food. Using temptation as the language here is not accidental. The idea is that fat people cannot be trusted around food.
Watching this documentary was so interesting because the producers of this show, along with Bob Harper and Jillian Michaels, are so cartoonishly evil that I was stunned at how shameless they were. The first contestant to be named The Biggest Loser, a man named Ryan, who appears in the doc as well, admitted to overexerting himself and doing the master cleanse, which he admits was extremely unhealthy. But that didn't matter. What mattered is he lost a lot of weight, which helped boost the show's popularity and garner Ryan a bit of fame and notoriety. Ryan says that the show became a hit because you were watching real people's bodies change on live television. When it comes to weight loss narratives, there's always an emphasis on the word change. You're here to change your body, which is supposed to change you and your life, and so even though we watch these contestants being screamed at, being forced to exercise strenuously to the point of literally vomiting, it's fine. This isn't disturbing at all because this is all in the name of great change. As Aubrey Gordon says in the doc, the show perpetuates the titled message that as a fat person, the most important thing you can ever do in your life is become thin. JD Roth, the producer, says they weren't looking for happy fat people. They wanted fat people who were unhappy with themselves. And I find that to be so disgusting. He is outright admitting to taking advantage of these people's deep insecurities and unhappiness to make a hit show. They encouraged the trainers to be awful to the contestants and wanted them to exercise until they vomited because it made for good television. But again, at the same time, constantly reminding us that this was noble. This was a good thing that they were doing because people were actually losing weight. The show's Dr. Rob Huizinga said the show had a 99% weight loss success rate. When the contestants would win, they would show their fatter self next to them as the crowd cheered for this new and improved thin person who finally managed to change their life. With that new body came a $250,000 check and possibly a chance to be on Regis and Kelly or Ellen. This is what matters, winning. But it is so clear to me from the clips we see that what these people are being put through is extremely unhealthy and not something audiences would be okay with if these were not fat people.
Well, this to me encapsulates sort of why I picked this clip, because it's this perfect encapsulation in 60, 90 seconds of the show's completely contradictory tone toward fat people. Because at one side, they're saying, you know, you deserve better, you deserve this better life for yourself, right? Like it's being done out of care. But then on the other side, literally like the next sentence, they're saying, don't sit there and eat ice cream and watch this. This is the last straw. You're going to die if you don't do this. So it's like, well, do you care about me or not?
Yeah, this is also where the logic of anti-fatness and the logic of sort of like weight loss, right, tips into the logic of like spousal or family abuse.
Right.
Where they're like, I'm doing this for your own good. I wouldn't do this if you didn't make me. And it's really wild to me that culturally, we have all gotten on board with like, yeah, actually, for some groups of people, you have to publicly abuse and shame them for their own good, right? That we have all sort of collectively bought into this logic that we would absolutely not stand for in individual relationships. Yeah. But suddenly when it's on a grand scale, we're like, yeah, no, that's good.
Also, some of us just like ice cream, Bob.
Listen,
you know,
some of us are eating Halo Top.
Yeah.
There's a contestant from season 8 who shows up in the documentary named Tracy, who opens up about being unhappy with her body and blaming her weight for why her husband was unfaithful to her. Tracy wanted to come on the show because, as she put it, her weight was constantly bringing her down, and she was determined to change her life. Unfortunately, no one told Tracy that that change would lead to her possibly losing her life during a race on the beach that left Tracy unable to walk. She was so tired that she couldn't move her legs, but was still being encouraged by her teammates and by the host Allie to keep going. You can do it, even though you can't walk. You can do it, come on. Her teammates help her over the finish line and she collapses. And it's here that Allie in the doc says that this was when she realized something was wrong.
Physically could not get up. She collapsed right there on the other side of the finish line, and that's when I realized there was a real problem.
I knew something more serious was happening because she was really not responding.
Okay, so why did the bitch have to collapse for you to see that something was wrong? I don't have anything against the host, she seems fine, but that shit pissed me off. She was literally falling to the ground and saying she couldn't walk. In the doc, Tracy says her legs felt like lead. Any other person of a much smaller size, people would have rushed over to see what was wrong. They would have actually been concerned about her health. But that's the thing. People are never actually concerned about fat people's health. Something Aubrey says in the documentary is how fat people are both invisible and hypervisible. We only want to see fat people in these kinds of moments, when they're running on a beach struggling to make it to the finish line until they fucking pass out because no one was concerned about their well-being.
I'm glad you brought up how the aftercare was not a thought. Even at $250,000, when we talk about like the healthcare system, you can burn through that in minutes. Because we had one contestant who couldn't even make it to the finish line because her organs were like shutting down. Tracy was like, her body was shutting down, saying she can't do that. And again,
she almost died.
Had to be medevac. The helicopter had to. They was, you can do it. What happens when a fat person is telling you my body cannot do that, and the response is you can?
The response is not only that you can, but that you have to. That it is yours because you are a moral failing as a fat person. Like, not your body is not just a failure. You as a person are a moral failing or a moral failure. You have to push past these, what your body is telling you. You can't trust your body. You can't trust that your body actually knows what it needs, because you don't know what your body needs because you're fat. You can't listen to what your body needs because you're not used to exercising. You're not used to movement, so you don't actually know what your body can and cannot handle. That's what we're here for, these thin trainers. We're here for that because your body doesn't know what it needs.
Yeah.
Tracy had to be medevaced and rushed to the hospital because her body had been so overworked that her organs were shutting down. She almost died, but she didn't. And when she woke up, she decided to return to the show because she was that determined to change her life. And I find that to be very sad. And it is why I think this is probably the most horrendous reality TV show that has ever existed in America. Tracy says she didn't want to come home looking how she looked when she left. She wanted to come home with a new body. The pressure to be thin is so intense that this woman, who, as she says, cheated death, was willing to risk her life just to be skinny and to hopefully, in her mind, fix her marriage. And why wouldn't she believe that? Why wouldn't she blame herself for why her husband cheated on her? Those are the cultural messages that are instilled into fat people. Anything bad that they experience is their fault because they're fat. Going back to Dr. Huizenga and Tracy, when she returned, he advised that she not work out with Jillian and Bob because she was still, recovering from almost dying. And for some reason, this pissed them off. They were angry because they felt Tracy needed to experience everything that this competition required. So even when she was still able to lose weight without training with them, they were mad, big mad. Tracy would jump at the opportunity to have an advantage over the other contestants, and this got her a villain edit for some reason. I guess because she wanted it too much. All the other contestants got mad at her and ended up voting her off when she lost only 3 pounds 1 week. Put a pin in that. To me, the reason Jillian and Bob were angry and didn't even clap for her one time when she lost 11 pounds in 1 week is because Tracy being able to still lose weight without their screaming and yelling and fat shaming and vomiting slightly disrupted the weight loss fantasy that this show is built on.
I think that this could be the relief and support of freedom that you've been looking for your whole life. Bless you, because there is a space for all points of view. I'm just curious about your thoughts on the whole special and her kind of new position as breaking down the stigma of taking these drugs.
Well, two things. One, I would say there's not a specific stigma or system of oppression set up around people losing weight, right? That's just to be super duper clear, when we're talking about the stigma that people face for taking Ozempic, I would argue it's not stigma per se. It's essentially runoff anti-fatness. It's because you are not suffering in the way that folks want to see fat people suffer in order to lose weight, right?
There's a sign on the wall in the gym that says, "Trust the process, change forever." Part of that process is suffering to become thin. David said while making this show that he wanted to see if they could get people to lose weight the old-fashioned way. And because of the show's 99% success rate, they upheld this bullshit idea of virtuous weight loss.
Well, maybe I don't look the part. I'm not svelte. I don't look comfortable on camera.
I have spoken many times about how our culture is full of contradictions around beauty standards and quote-unquote health. In the 90s and early 2000s, we were bombarded with tabloids focusing on the bodies of female celebrities. Either we were fat-shaming women who were a size 4 or who had a big butt or big boobs, or we were body-shaming female celebrities who looked dangerously underweight. The goal is always to be thin, but not too thin, but also not even a bit chubby or thick. It's cliche, I know. Women are expected to meet an impossible standard of beauty. What else is new? We've known this for decades, and yet we still don't really care about the fact that people do very unhealthy things to lose weight, because losing weight is actually very hard. It's not a simple calories in, calories out. It's not just get on the treadmill. It's not just put down the cheeseburger. And anyone who has spent most of their life dieting knows this. Something people don't know or don't want to believe is that diets have been proven to not produce long-term weight loss since the 1950s. So something having a 99% success rate for weight loss means nothing because, yeah, a lot of people can lose weight on these diets for a short period of time. Every couple of decades, doctors and researchers discover once again that dieting doesn't work, and that people who diet constantly end up with worse health conditions than they had before. And The Biggest Loser is proof of that. The Biggest Loser is proof of a lot of things. It exists as a gross and disturbing example of the ways we accept and normalize the abuse of fat people. But it also dismantles this myth that the pursuit of fitness has anything to do with health. They literally have a doctor on the show who would advise the contestants to not go on these 800 calories a day diets that Jillian and Bob were recommending to them. But then if the contestants listened, they would be punished like Tracy. On this show, it was celebrated if contestants lost a significant amount of weight each week. Danny Cahill, who went on to become like the biggest loser, as in he lost the most weight out of anybody who ever came onto that show, was losing 20 to 30 pounds every week.
I lost 24 pounds first week. I cried.
Oh, wow. You were nervous, Danny.
Oh, I was very nervous. I started crying on the scale. The second week, I lost 12 pounds, and that was still a great result for the second week. The third week, I lost 4 pounds. That was when I said, whoa, maybe I need to do something different here. And I started lowering my calories at that point.
He lost over 200 pounds in 6 months. Like, that is so incredibly unhealthy that I gasped at that part of the documentary. Any doctor will tell you that it is only recommended that you lose like 1 or 2 pounds a week. 1 or 2. These contestants were trying to lose so much at once that when they only lost like 3 or 4 pounds, they were ashamed of themselves. And when they were ashamed, they did what society tells them to do when they don't produce the correct amount of results. They exercised more and ate less, to the point that one of the contestants was urinating blood. It wasn't until the infamous season 15 winner, Rachel Fredrickson, lost, I guess, too much weight that it scared people. Even though everyone who came on the show was engaging in extremely unhealthy dieting and exercising regimens, abusing caffeine pills, allegedly also being given other drugs, it's only when someone looks scary skinny that we decide to raise concern. Interesting. During the late seasons of the show, the media began to look more skeptically at the series when former contestants like Kai Hibbard and others came forward saying they developed EDs, gained all their weight back. A small study that followed multiple former contestants proved that these people's health deteriorated as a result of going on the show. Some of the former contestants in the doc downplayed this information and blamed themselves rather for why their metabolism was fucked up. And again, why wouldn't they? When that is what diet culture tells us to do. It is never the diet's fault. It is always the individual's fault. Trust the process, remember? Except these people did trust the process. Danny Cahill, who was in the documentary, is back to his original size. He did not change forever, clearly. Something that diet defenders, I guess I'll call them, will say is, of course they gained the weight back because they went back to their old ways. It's frustrating because it buys into this myth that people just don't know how to diet correctly. And the thing is, it is somewhat true that if you want to remain thin, you must remain on this specific diet for the rest of your life. If you lost weight on Ozempic, you need to take Ozempic forever if you want to keep that weight loss. You must work out as much as you were because our bodies have set points and your body will try to get back to your former size because whether you want to believe it or not, we don't actually have that much control over our body size. Sorry. Danny Cahill even said that he suggested to the producers that they provide aftercare for the contestants when they leave the show, and they said no, claiming they couldn't afford it. Whatever. Suzanne, another contestant who was told to gain some weight before coming on the show, said something very poignant, which is, you love to watch us, but you don't want to know what happens to us after the fact. If this show was about helping people, why wouldn't you keep up with them and see how they were doing and if they needed anything to help keep the weight off? It's silly and dumb to imply that these people who are placed in an unusual situation, a TV show where they do not have to work, pay bills, or take care of their kids, they're on a show in an environment where they can spend all day working out and not eating, the idea that they would be able to take that and bring it into their regular life is fucking crazy. And I hate the fact that there are so many people who are committed to making people feel like shit because they weren't able to just put in an 8-hour workout after working an 8-hour shift. Very realistic and doable for everyone, sure. People have these things called jobs. Many of these people have children, social lives, friends. Like, how can you expect someone to keep up that kind of routine at home? Also, when they were being pushed to their limits in the gym, some of them suffered bodily injuries and stress fractures that they were forced to continue exercising on because fat people's pain is not something we are ever supposed to care about or take seriously. Going back to that Biggest Loser study, the documentary for some reason treats this study as if this study provided some groundbreaking information. The only thing unique about the study is that it was specifically about people who were on The Biggest Loser. There have been many, 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 many studies over the past few decades that prove that yo-yo dieting is bad for your health and will permanently damage your metabolism. It will make you fatter and it will make it harder for you to lose weight in the future. Dr. Huizinga implies that rapid weight loss isn't unhealthy, even though it factually is. So I'm disappointed that this documentary didn't have anti-diet researchers on to provide these facts that have been very well documented. My fave, Aubrey Gordon, is really the only one in the documentary who was there to counter the bullshit Bob, David, and JD were spewing in their interviews. I think this doc was a small step in the right direction in the sense that it is one of the first documentaries I've seen that actually centers fat people's experiences and somewhat condemns the fat shaming they experienced. This and the Gwen Shamlin Lara documentary, that was the first documentary I've seen where fat people were actually being centered in a conversation around diet culture. As I always say, I'm glad it exists, but as Andy Denhart said in his piece about the documentary, it ends up reinforcing the toxic messaging of the reality show. All of the contestants in one way or another defend the practices of the show. Joel claims that if there were just a few tweaks, it could have actually helped people, even though it literally seems to have helped no one. Even if it lied to people, it made bank selling a lie. Something Deshaun Harrison brought up in that King of Reeds video I've been referencing is that our bodies are not rubber bands. Your skin isn't just going to snap into place when you lose weight. You will have excess skin, and because we live in an anti-fat society, a society obsessed with perfection, losing weight will not mean anything for a lot of people if their body does not look quote-unquote snatched. So when these contestants were losing weight, they weren't willing to pay for them to get surgery to remove the excess skin, so instead they had them wear compression shirts. Because excess skin does what exactly? I mean, if it's all about health, why hide the excess skin? They had no problem showing their bellies when they were fat. Oh, right. Because it disrupts the fantasy.
So Danny was quote unquote lucky by being, or it was either Danny or the first season contestant.
Mm-hmm.
I can't remember which one.
I think it was Danny.
I think it was Danny too. They were able to have theirs surgically removed, or he was able to have his surgically removed, but the other contestants could not. So it's also like this. People are they walk around with like different, because I know a lot of fat folks who have lost weight who cannot afford to have that surgery, right? And so they walk around with a lot of self-consciousness around their bodies and are engaged horribly because of it. I've seen a lot of people make comments about Lizzo's body in that way. Like, oh, you can tell she has excess skin here in the thighs or here in the arms or whatever. So it's like, you want fat folks to lose weight, but then you want fat folks to look a certain way when they lose weight. And when they don't look that way, because most folks will not when they lose weight. Let's just be clear. Like, that's just not how skin and muscle and whatnot works. This is not how it works. So when they don't look that way, then they're also picked on in that way. And that is because we have very clear anti-fat, anti-disfigured sentiments about people's bodies.
That's one of the side effects of Ozempic and Zepbound too, for a lot of folks.
I mean, when you lose weight rapidly,
yes,
your skin, our skin is not, it don't snap back. It's not elastic. It's not like something that you can just like
that.
It don't work that way.
No, it takes time, but it's not the same for everybody.
Exactly.
Especially if you've been for so long.
Exactly.
What I found to be incredibly sad about this show is not just the fact that these people hate their fat selves so much that they truly feel becoming thin will completely change around their entire lives forever, but also the way this show caused these people to turn on each other when certain people weren't able to lose as much weight as everyone else. Joelle struggled to lose any weight, and this caused her teammates and her friend Carla, who came on the show with her, to turn on her. They would fight with each other, which was obviously good for television. And this weight loss journey tore apart their friendship. This show fed into these people's internalized fat phobia. If people struggled to shed pounds, they would blame each other for not wanting it hard enough. It made them distance themselves from each other emotionally. This happens in Brittany Runs a Marathon at the birthday party with Jasmine. And I don't mean this to say former fat people are uniquely fat phobic. We're all fat phobic. But it really is something that we don't talk about a lot when it comes to weight loss. Weight loss conversations can be some of the most frustrating and anxiety-inducing things you can try to have online. People who want to lose weight or have lost weight will usually feel personally attacked at people trying to have a more nuanced conversation around an issue that is continuously harming people's physical, emotional, and mental health. Many of them, not all of them, but many of them, have been spreading these false narratives about how fat activists think it's fat phobic to lose weight when that is not something fat activists and scholars spend that much time focusing on. Just another way to villainize an already fringe movement that does not get the attention that it deserves. Yes, there will be people who will be openly upset about someone's weight loss or might even say they're fat phobic, but I don't find that to be any different from most body policing that happens online. I think fat people get way worse comments about their bodies, and also that's a very small group of people. We still live in an anti-fat diet culture, y'all. Not that many people are that woke when it comes to fat people or body image. You can go literally almost anywhere online and talk about your weight loss and receive enormous praise and adulation. Weight loss is one of the most celebrated things a person can do in their life in our society, especially if you're a woman. That and getting married to a man and then having children. I get that if this is something you really want to do and you don't want to hear about this stuff, but as I always say, no one is forcing you to be a part of that discourse, and a lot of y'all don't even have the range to insert yourselves into these discussions anyway. I'll try to talk to people in my personal life, like my family, about fat phobia and diet culture, something I know they've never actually looked into that much themselves, but will speak with so much confidence. And it's so annoying because people really do not know what the fuck they're talking about. A lot of people will say things like, the science around obesity is settled. Every doctor will tell you that it is dangerous to be fat, period. And that's literally not true. The science around obesity is not settled. It's actually something obesity and anti-diet researchers and doctors have been fighting about for decades. There are doctors who do not believe weight is the sole determinant of health. Most of them do, but many of them don't. Many are actually committed to giving equal and fair medical treatment to fat people. I'm not religious, but thank God for them, seriously. There's also this obesity paradox thing where some people are actually healthier at a larger size. I try to give people a bit of grace because unfortunately the media and our society at large are not taught about these things. Many people don't know that most obesity research that puts out studies proving how unhealthy it is to be fat are typically funded by diet companies and always have been. Now, I'm not saying they're all a bunch of liars, but I am saying there is a financial incentive to keep telling people that being fat is bad and being skinny is good. For your health, sorry, forgot to throw that in there. People continue to regurgitate the 400,000 people die of obesity every year number, even though the person who came up with that number debunked that shit in 2001. It's not true. Plus, people don't die of fat. That's not a thing you'll see on someone's death certificate, and it's actually not that simple to deduce how a fat person died. Like, if we're talking about a stroke, there are so many things that play into why someone dies from a heart attack or a stroke. But we'll get more into that in another video. I don't feel like talking about that right now. So many people think they're experts on health and dieting and weight loss. They think that we all have the same body and that we are all capable of losing weight the old-fashioned way, even though we have mountains and mountains of evidence that disprove that. And it's just exhausting because there's nothing anyone can tell me when it comes to this. The pursuit of thinness has been proven time and time again to harm people's health on multiple fronts, and we know this. We talk about it all the time when we talk about beauty standards. But even people who claim to care about that stuff don't want to let go of their anti-fat bias. They don't even want to interrogate it or unpack it. There are people who go silent when people try to talk about anti-fat bias with them. They don't want to include that in the discussion around beauty standards. But Tracy from The Biggest Loser almost died, and she came back to the place that almost killed her because she wanted to be thin. I'm sorry, I am not interested in telling anyone what to do with their bodies, but that's fucking crazy. Why is that normal? Why is it a normal thing for people to be willing to die to be thin? And to be clear, I am not coming for Tracy here. I try not to come down on individual people for these things in the way that these weight loss narratives tend to. I'm not mad at her, I'm mad at us, especially those of us on the left for not wanting to unpack this unhealthy obsession with thinness. This obsession is what causes people to casually watch a reality TV show where people are being emotionally abused because they're fat. Everyone was just fine with that, and that's very disturbing. To present another bleak example, take the case of Justin Hunt, a young black man from California who in the early 2000s tried to join the Marines but couldn't due to his size, weighing at nearly 400 pounds. So Justin began his weight loss journey and was able to get down to 200 pounds, which allowed him to enlist, and he got in. In a 2004 article from the LA Times, which interviewed Justin's family, his mother spoke about how proud he was of losing the weight and becoming a Marine. By the time he joined the Marines, Hunt was a muscular 170 pounds. He was proud, his mother said. "Mommy, your baby boy's a Marine." That's what he said when he graduated. Sadly, Justin wouldn't be able to enjoy this accomplishment for long because on July 6, 2004, he died in an explosion. I suppose the only good thing to come from this story is that he was happy when he died. I don't know. Amy Erdman Farrell spoke to this in her book Fat Shame in a passage that I think is so poignant, and it's something I don't think we ever want to consider when it comes to weight loss success stories. She says, quote, "In the context of a country that is fixated on fatness as a matter of national shame and as a security threat, as Frank Deford's words attested to in the introduction, Justin Hunt was indeed a national hero, one deserving of particular attention. Although unspoken, the article in recounting his weight loss and his persistence suggests Hunt was quite embarrassed by his size. His fatness prevented him from meeting the standards of the military, that bastion of masculine responsibility and privilege. Through his persistence and determination, however, he finally was able to meet the military standards and to serve the nation. What is particularly salient about the story is that in reality, Hunt's fatness had protected him by preventing him from joining the armed forces. But the article reinforces the idea that Hunt chose thinness, and by implication, manhood, over safety. He had achieved manhood, even if it meant sacrificing his own life. That is bleak. I truly think that so many people are so unhappy with their weight or are fixated on their weight in some way and are very touchy about their bodies, and that prevents them from being able to even engage in a nuanced discussion around weight and this deeply unhealthy obsession. Even when people are trying to critique diet culture, they still uphold thin supremacy. They'll be like, if you just let your body do what it wants and don't diet, you'll lose weight. And like, sure, maybe that's a good way to try and pull people over to our side so they can start to unpack these things, but I don't understand why we still can't let go of thinness. And no, this isn't about how I think everyone should be fat or whatever. I literally do not give a fuck what you do with your body. I just wish we could finally acknowledge that our obsession with thinness is not and was never about health. If it was about health, these people wouldn't have come home with newfound eating disorders. No one ever seems to consider mental health when they talk about health all day, every day on the internet. As if fat shaming people and making them feel horrible about how they look has zero effect on their health. We spent the 2010s pretending like we actually cared about dismantling these rigid beauty standards, only to completely remove the mask the minute another miracle diet drug was introduced to the world. Even though there have been many miracle diet drugs in the past, some of which killed people like Fen-Phen, but sure, this is the one that will rid the world of fat people. Spoiler alert, it won't. The weight loss fantasy promises good health, stronger self-esteem, a better love life, etc. And the sad thing is, people are often treated better by the people in their lives when they lose weight. They will have better access to clothing that they maybe couldn't wear before. They may be able to go to places that they couldn't go to before. People in your life feel comfortable saying, "You look so much better now." Something I have experienced personally. People will say it without even knowing how you lost weight. Because like I said, it's not about health. So while it is true to an extent that a lot of things will get better, that does not mean you will necessarily be healthier physically or mentally. And it doesn't mean you're going to have the body you're expecting to have. And also, we never want to interrogate how that is fucked up. How it is fucked up that people's family members will treat them better if they have a different body. How fucked up it is that very fat people who can't even leave the house kind of have to lose weight if they want to have a normal life because our society doesn't accommodate them. People shouldn't have to lose weight to be able to participate in society, to be treated better. They shouldn't have to lose weight to get the kind of medical treatment from their doctors that thin people get. And this shouldn't be a radical thing to say. This weight loss fantasy, this obsession with thinness is what fuels diet culture, and diet culture is just glorified eating disorder culture. We can't solve the problem of eating disorders in a society where disordered eating and food shame and body shaming and ableism is normalized, where hating yourself is normalized. We live in a culture of normative discontent. Normative discontent is, as Glamour magazine defines it, a feeling of constant unhappiness with your body. Think of that scene from Mean Girls or that scene from Sex and the City where all the women are just sharing the things about their appearances that they hate. It's normal for women to bond over self-hatred. Women hating themselves makes a lot of people a lot of money. There are entire industries banking on fat people's self-hatred that we encourage and endorse. And even though we live in this toxic culture that encourages normative discontent, we still want to individualize it and make it their responsibility to resolve on their own. We don't get a lot of movies that center fat people, but when we do, they usually involve a young fat woman who is insecure, has a fraught relationship with her mom, and needs to learn to love herself. I like some of these films. Queen Size, My Fat Diary, Dumpling, not so much, but it's fine. The best thing about all of these movies is that the lead actresses are really great actresses, but they are relegated to these shallow stories.
But the thing that jumps out to me about them, the hand-wringing about, like, body positivity, is body positivity, like, null and void now? And it's just like, okay, so you can stop pretending like you ever cared.
Totally. And again, this is all of the stuff that's like, oh no, was body positivity all a lie? To me really reads as like, oh, nobody asked a fat person. Oh no, nobody asked a fat person. Because I feel like as a fat person, I can tell you, people changed the way that they couched their feelings, but their feelings about fatness and fat people didn't change, right? Like, there wasn't a point at which it was like super cool to be the fattest person in the room. There wasn't a point at which there were simply too many thin people rushing to the defense of fat people. None of that materialized for fat people in like a meaningful way. I think in a lot of ways, the sort of discourse around body positivity was much more a self-soothing story that people who weren't fat told themselves about their role in anti-fatness, right? That was sort of allowed them to think that there'd been a bigger and more meaningful shift than there had. And if you ask fat people, you know, same day, same stuff, you know, here we are again.
Natalie ContraPoints, who I've had on the show a couple times and who I reference often, she made a comment. It was in a completely different context, but she said something in one of her YouTube videos where she was basically like, shallow understanding creates shallow acceptance. And I think that's true in the body positivity conversation. I think it's also been true. I think about that a lot in the context of like the last 10-ish years of queer rights, which are so rapidly being eroded, because it's like when you change what you're allowed to say, but never actually interrogate what you feel deep down.
Yeah.
And, you know, definitely not changing, you know, like laws and institutions that marginalize these groups of people. You're just making it so for the second that it is no longer fashionable to be like, quote unquote, more polite to fat people, queer people, people of color, then we just stopped doing that and nothing meaningful ever changed, which is something that people who belong to these groups knew the whole time.
Yeah, totally. And I also feel like in this sort of moment around Ozempic, I feel like what I'm observing more often than not is both a sort of, thank God we don't have to think about that anymore, is one of the sort of underpinnings that happens here, right? The other one that feels like it's sort of at play here is that folks are trying to hang on to their deep desire for thinness, which is rooted in wild and pretty terrible judgments about fat people. Those two things are linked in a way that you can't really disentangle. So folks are trying to hang on to their deep and long-standing desire to be as thin as possible because of the ways that we judge thin people differently than fat people. That means that they want to hang on to their anti-fatness, but they've also recognized now that fat people have a negative experience of the world often at the hands of thin people. So people are like really trying to have it both ways, right? They really want to hang on to their anti-fatness, but they also really want to be sort of the heroes in fat people's stories. And I think that all of this sort of stuff around like, it's actually a scientific breakthrough and it's really good for people's health. becomes just like a return to I'm just concerned with your health sort of concern trolling as a fig leaf for folks pretty deep and pretty uninterrogated anti-fatness.
Queen Size is a Lifetime movie starring Tracy Turnblad, 2007 version, as a fat teenager named Maggie Baker who experiences severe bullying at school and gets nominated as homecoming queen by the mean popular kids as a joke. And so she decides to run to get back at them, and actually ends up winning. But throughout, she faces many setbacks, as her bullies try to sabotage her at every turn. From stealing her signature she needed to get on the ballot, to trying to frame her for destroying the popular girls' posters, to messing with the float to make it look like she broke it. Now, this movie is very complex, believe it or not. It is one of the better Lifetime movies in terms of acting, at least between Maggie and her mom. I think there are elements of their dynamic that are very realistic to how moms sometimes treat their fat daughters, constantly telling her she has such a pretty face, and when Maggie responds, "Oh, and an ugly body, right?" she of course lies and says she never said that, even though that's obviously what you meant. Maggie's mom is blatantly fatphobic towards her daughter, but constantly acts confused as to why her daughter is extremely sensitive to everything she says.
I don't want you to be hurt. It's just because they're jerks, I shouldn't run. You can't expect to change everybody else. The only person that you can change is you. Would you get that out of a fortune cookie? I'm going for ice cream.
It's similar to Kate and Rebecca in This Is Us, where Rebecca is fatphobic towards Kate, but the show makes Kate to be the villain in that relationship because, you know, she's a teenage girl and moms have it so hard. Queen Size does empathize much more with Maggie than This Is Us does with Kate. And also, unlike This Is Us, it doesn't completely let the mom off the hook. But the movie still plays into the world doesn't need to change, you need to change message. See, Maggie knows that her mom has low expectations for her, and her mom constantly discourages her from doing certain things because she's afraid she'll get hurt. And this bothers Maggie, and so she decides to prove her wrong out of spite, which we love. As soon as she announces this to her friend Casey, she, like her mom, also doubt whether Maggie should do this or not. And even though she, along with some of the other alternative underdog students, help her with this campaign, there are so many moments where the popular kids will do something fucked up, and they'll immediately be like, "You should quit. Why are you doing this?"
Maggie? Don't what? Just don't. I'm doing this. But what about Liz and all those guys? They're gonna crucify you. I'm not taking my marching orders from Liz Petchler. I didn't do this for fun. I did this because you have really no clue.
I'm not trying to belittle it. Just don't make it matter more than it does. I don't even remember who my homecoming queen was. In 20 years you won't either.
I will if I win. Like, you know, it wasn't enough to plaster the school with Vote Barbie posters or frame me for vandalism. God, you know, I just wish Liz and her stupid posse would just leave me alone. Oh, look. Is making some kind of statement really worth the public humiliation? Just quit. Quit? Or don't quit. What do you want from me, Maggie? To shave Liz's head? Maybe.
But for some reason, the movie makes it seem as though Maggie's only problem is herself. She's just so mean to herself, and if she just stopped being mean to herself, all of her problems will go away. In the movie, we keep seeing this imaginary version of her mother, who pops up frequently as Maggie's negative self-talk demon. That's what I'm gonna call her. She fat shames her, tells her she's nothing but a fat girl, and that's how everyone will always see her, and tells her to just give up. Which sounds a lot like my depression now that I say it. For some reason, the movie acts like this negative self-talk is all on Maggie. It's her fault and it's her problem to deal with, not something that was imposed onto her by her mother and the kids at school. Like, Maggie gets some media attention when she's interviewed for like a magazine or a newspaper or something, and then she gets invited onto a morning show to talk about this whole experience. During the interview, which all the kids at school are watching, Maggie passionately talks about how no one backed her up when she first decided to run, and uses I statements, I guess, when talking about what she went through during all of this bullshit. And this pisses everyone off for some reason. It's so fucking stupid. She shows up the next day at school and everyone is being mean to her, which is typical. But even the ones who helped her with her signatures are not being kind. Then she talks to her bitch ass friend Casey, who was so mad at her. It felt like jealousy to me, but they wouldn't dare make a skinny girl be jealous of a fat girl, so that's not it, I guess. Casey basically says she's mad that she's constantly acting like the underdog, and lots of people helped and supported her, which is true, but it's also not. Her friends did absolutely help her, but her friends and her family were also telling her to give up anytime something bad happened, and she just kept pushing through to prove a point. Plus, she was on TV, like, let her have her moment. Casey tells her that because she's been on top for a while now, she has no right to still be upset that she still gets bullied horrifically at school.
I am just sick of the Maggie Against the World routine. I worked my ass off for this election. So did a lot of your friends, and hundreds of kids voted for you.
But now some kids are trying to take that away from you.
So don't let them.
Excuse me? Or was it somebody else who told me to quit after the float incident?
But you stayed in the game, and I am so proud of you. But how about you thank the people who've been supporting you instead of knocking the few people who are trying to blast you?
But Case, you saw what they did to me.
I did, and it sucks, but you got in this to show people you're more than just a loser fat girl. And you've done that, so what's the problem?
Nobody's treating me like anything's changed.
No, Maggie, you're treating yourself that way.
One of her other friends is like, if things are still bad, it's because you made it that way. Basically, you're just insecure, and if you weren't so insecure, you wouldn't have these problems. I mean, it's realistic. I have met and currently know people who think like this. So Maggie tries to apologize to Casey, who just starts being really mean to her and says something shitty about her weight, and Maggie, rightfully, to me, pushes her skinny ass to the ground, which of course gets her suspended. After this, we see her mom talking to her coworker who is fat and does a great job of calling her out for not being more supportive of Maggie.
Do you hear yourself? You assumed that no one could look past her size because you can't look past it. You look at her the same way those jerk kids do.
That is so not true. That is completely different. They want to hurt her. I love her. I'm trying to protect her.
It doesn't matter that you have good intentions. Maggie thinks that all you see when you look at her is a fat girl. A disappointment.
What's frustrating is even though the mom realizes how awful she's been, she instantly jumps to, but I really am concerned about her health. It's bullshit. Like, yeah, her dad had diabetes and died, and so I get to some degree why she's concerned just because of genetics, but as Aubrey said on Matt Bernstein's podcast, if it was all about health, then why are you constantly conflating the social benefits of weight loss with the supposed health benefits? If it's about health, you wouldn't be telling her she'd feel better about herself if she lost weight, or that her life would be better if she lost weight. You would acknowledge that while she is fat, she will definitely experience discrimination, but that she is still beautiful the way she is. But whatever, this pushes mom to finally be supportive of her daughter, who was of course upset about being suspended, and after telling her that she should go to homecoming, she says, I can't do this for you. It's your choice, but you just can't go on living like this.
If you want to show these people who you really are, you gotta stop hiding.
That's a good idea. Get kicked in the teeth again.
I can't do this for you, Maggie.
Like you have the guts to do it for yourself.
It's your choice. But you just can't go on living like this.
Living like what? What are you talking about? This is when Maggie gets upset at her imaginary self-talk demon. She yells at her in the mirror, but she disappears, and it shows Maggie just yelling at herself in the mirror as like a way to be like, this was all just Maggie being insecure and having severe self-doubt. In one of the final scenes, she gets ready for homecoming and her mom comes in and apologizes to her for treating her like there was something wrong with her. And then Maggie says, I treated myself that way. And it's like, yeah, because other people treated you that way. You didn't come out the womb feeling like that. It's so frustrating. Like, I like this movie, but it is so victim blaming. Maggie has endured intense bullying and harassment at school. Her classmates literally sabotaged the float to make it look like she broke it, which is very easy to do because people are fatphobic and would absolutely believe she broke that shit. She could have gotten seriously hurt from that. On top of that, she has to deal with her mom being passive aggressive and nicely fat shaming her on a daily basis. I appreciate her mom being held accountable a little bit, but the way it ends on this "fuck the haters queen" message is very disappointing. I mean, it was 2008. I'm just happy we got a real fat girl and not a weight loss transformation, but I do find these messages to be dangerous. Telling marginalized people who have experienced bullying and systemic discrimination because of how they look, that is their fault for not just being more confident, is so shitty. This is always the message at the end of every fat teen girl movie or every self-love narrative, like the original Nutty Professor.
Guess I found out something that I never knew. You might as well like yourself. Just think about all the time you're going to have to spend with you.
That's not to say they're never executed well, but usually they aren't. Dumpling does a similar thing. It perpetuates this very harmful idea that even though we know the world treats you like shit, It is your fault for internalizing it. And that's not a good message. Movies that center skinny women who struggle with EDs sometimes suffer from the same problem. They don't critique society or the societal and systemic pressure to be thin and how anti-fat bias causes mothers to be horrible to their own daughters about their bodies. It is gaslighting to blame someone for their insecurities, especially when you caused them.
I don't understand.
Well, it's pretty simple.
No, it's not, because you and I, we don't work together in the real world, Bo. You're supposed to be with someone like Becca.
What are you talking about?
God, I'm talking about this.
Also, just wanted to add in here that, like, I don't think what Bo says to her in this scene is inherently bad. Like, he tells her he thinks she's beautiful, which is fine, and basically says fuck anyone who made her feel like she wasn't, but him acting like he doesn't understand what she means when she says you're supposed to be with someone like Becca is very annoying as a marginalized person. Nothing is more frustrating than talking to someone who has more privilege than you, acting clueless about your marginalized experience. It's similar to interracial relationships narratives where they make it seem like it's romantic if the white partner is like, I don't see race, I just love you. And the person of color who understandably has hesitations about dating a white person is seen as like bad in some way for not being colorblind or whatever. If you're dating someone who is more marginalized than you, you actually do need to recognize that and acknowledge their very valid feelings. People absolutely would be awful to Willow Dean for dating a conventionally attractive thin white dude, as we saw with Jasmine and Brittany Runs a Marathon. And Bo needs to understand that if he's going to date fat women. Okay, back to the program. It would be nice if there were more stories that tackled how anti-fat bias harms fat people's health more than anything. Not getting quality medical care because your doctor refuses to test you for things is harming fat people's health more than whatever you think that cheeseburger is doing.
I also think, I mean, I hate to be the person who's like, well, what about the people with more power? But like, the BMI is not working for skinny people either.
That's right.
Because you have people like Bob Harper, the demonic personal trainer who hosts The Biggest Loser, who like does more exercise than anyone else on planet Earth, who has a heart attack in his 40s.
And then goes back to host The Biggest Loser and is like, and that's why all of you need to lose weight.
Exactly. Like, there are people who have risks of like lifestyle diseases and like genetic diseases. Right. And we're like, well, you're thin, so I don't need to run those tests for you. It's much worse for fat people, but it's not working for anybody.
Well, and it's much worse for fat people. It is arguably the worst of all for fat people who are chronically ill.
Yeah, my God.
Because then the response from thin people writ large, from fat people who don't have chronic illnesses, and from institutions and like medical systems is, well, you brought this on yourself. You knew the risks. You could have controlled your weight and you didn't.
I mean, this is my tinfoil hat turn in the episode.
Oh my God, tell me. Join me.
I actually think that like we are vastly underestimating the effect of medical bias as a driver of the quote unquote health effects of obesity.
Yeah.
I mean, this is anecdotal. It's really hard to get data. Eventually we will understand this phenomenon more. But like for our show, after I wrote my article about obesity in 2018, our inboxes are jam packed with people who are like, I had a fucking tumor for years that nobody diagnosed because they kept telling me to lose weight.
Yep.
Very severe health effects that nobody looks into because it's like, oh, you're fat, so I'm not going to run these tests on you, right? I'm not going to give you an MRI. I'm not going to listen to you. I'm not going to believe you until you lose enough weight that you appear as a person to me. Like I said, there is a correlation between higher BMI and worse health. And like some percentage of that is also the fact that like life-threatening illnesses in fat people do not get fucking diagnosed.
Well, and on top of that, so like 100% the number of horror stories from like individual fat people out in the world.
People do not understand how common this is.
People really, really, really don't understand. It is one of the great fears of my life, that I will die of a totally treatable or preventable thing because my doctor can't conceive of me having any other health problem than just being a fat person. Like, that is a fear that follows me every time I go into a doctor's office. It's terrible.
Yes.
The biggest weight loss fantasy is being played out right now with Ozempic. That fantasy being that it won't have any negative impacts on people's self-image and eating disorders. Some of the same people who concern troll thin women who think they might have an ED will sometimes be the same people blindly praising thin celebrities for getting thinner. We don't want young girls being influenced to starve themselves, but we also want to celebrate fat people's eating disorders if they become thin. And we don't want to get to the root of where all of these beauty standards come from: white supremacy. We also don't want to unpack healthism, something I discussed at length in my video about the body positivity movement. A radical movement started by fat, black, queer, and disabled people, but was taken over by thin, able-bodied white women and subsequently pushed out the fat people who introduced the concept to them. Healthism was weaponized against those people, and suddenly body positivity was only for the people who looked healthy. And as we've discussed, health and thinness are perceived by most people as being synonymous with each other. I keep seeing people complaining about the return of skinny and implying that fat shaming has come back. It's extremely annoying because this same mindset is being played out right now with the revisionist history of popular social movements of the 2010s. Like, y'all are overestimating the actual impact of those movements. The idea that fat shaming went away? Really? Did we just forget about the horrific fatphobic treatment Lizzo received anytime she did anything? Yeah, a lot of people loved her, but that doesn't mean a lot of people didn't also hate her very much. She literally did a live crying about the racist and fatphobic treatment she was getting, and everyone just made fun of her. Like with Maggie, she was just told by a lot of her supporters to fuck the haters, queen. But if that was a skinny white girl being fat shamed and was crying on live about people calling her fat, suddenly everyone feels really bad for her. Because a skinny girl being called fat? That's the real tragedy here, everybody. Because look at her. She's not even fat. See, if she was fat, then it would be okay. Duh. I mean, that's how a lot of y'all seem to think. I've definitely focused on thin women who were fat shamed because I do think it's important to always condemn body shaming. But I feel like I come at it from a different angle than most people I hear talk about this. This emphasis on she's not even fat is such a simplistic way of looking at it and is completely missing the point. I think this rhetoric does increase people's body dysmorphia, but I also think people ignore the pure misogyny of those kinds of comments. People know that women are under intense pressure to not be fat and are extremely self-conscious of their bodies, and they know calling women fat is like a stab to the heart. It is a word people hurl at successful women as a way to take her down a peg. It doesn't really have anything to do with her actual weight. This happened to Britney Spears, this happened to Kate Winslet, this happened to Demi Lovato, this happened to Amy Schumer. All thin women who, at the height of their fame, were relentlessly body shamed by the media and people online. So, focusing so much on how they weren't even fat is just missing the point and is also very telling. You shouldn't only speak out against fat shaming when it's happening to non fat people if body shaming is something you have a problem with as a progressive person. I rarely hear anyone other than fat people discuss this aspect of what caused the downfall of body positivity because so many people seem to have fell for the hype. They fell for those Dove commercials that did a shallow attempt at body diversity by daring to include women who weren't super skinny. They thought the existence of a Lizzo somehow meant that we were all just okay with fat people when that isn't true. If you think skinny has come back, that is a result of living in a society that centers thin women's experiences when it comes to the conversation around body image and beauty standards. Just because people decided they wanted a little extra to love, but only in the right areas, doesn't mean that we had defeated fat discrimination because no one cared about defeating fat discrimination. They wanted to dismantle these rigid standards, but not enough to address the issue of systemic weight discrimination. Because the women who had become the face of the movement were not women who were experiencing the full extent of weight discrimination. Remember, those fat people have been pushed out. That's why you have so many YouTubers proclaiming that skinny has returned, because they actually think that we had let go of thinness. I don't want to speak for fat people as a whole as a small fat to mid-sized person, and I don't want to treat fat people like a monolith, but I'd argue there are many fat people who will tell you that nothing meaningful really changed for them, and the people in their lives didn't exactly become less fat phobic. And the thing is, you would know this if you, again, as Aubrey said, listen to some fat people. Like, y'all don't really listen to them. Y'all are fine with adopting language popularized by fat activists, especially when it comes to anti-diet conversations, but not willing to even credit them for it when you do. Y'all don't care about what fat people have to say about this, but y'all keep wondering why skinny keeps coming back. The weight loss fantasy harms all of us, and it often increases people's biases against fat people. Regardless of why you personally want to lose weight, most people want to be skinny more than they want to be healthy. People associate fatness with poor people, and many people, especially middle to upper class white people, don't want to look like they're low class. And like with Bacola and The Bluest Eye, we still really want an other to look down upon. People we can dehumanize and comfortably berate to make ourselves feel better about our own appearances. This is a truth that we still don't want to reckon with, and until we do, people will continue to be harmed by this obsession. Young girls as young as 7 will still struggle with eating disorders and will still grow up wanting to be a size 2. To close out, I want to quote from this article by Sheila O'Malley in an article for RogerEbert.com about the 2017 Lily Collins Netflix film To the Bone. There have been plenty of eating disorder movies since Best Little Girl in the World, but the narrative hasn't embedded itself in storytelling culture in the same way that drug or alcohol addiction narratives have. Eating disorders are a thornier issue, stranger, more intractable, scarier. The wider culture participates in perpetuating these illnesses, and so maybe that's one of the reasons why Hollywood, a place filled with thin women, is hesitant to address the issue. Thinness is so equated with beauty norms that it's a culture-wide propaganda bomb. 2 months after a celebrity gives birth, people start making fun of what she looks like in her bathing suit. Girls get the message very young. To address anorexia in particular, you would have to address the entire culture's preoccupation with weight, its obsession with policing what women look like. Eating disorders are symptoms of the sickness of society. Until we treat body image issues, anti-fat bias, and eating disorders as political issues, we will never be free from this. And I guess we just have to be honest with ourselves and ask, do we truly want to be free from it?
Ricky Lake is Tracy Turnblad, and along with her best friend Penny, they're the show's biggest fans.
My character is a 16-year-old high school student who wants to be on the hottest dance show in 1962 called The Corny Collins Show. And eventually I get on the show. Not only do I get on the show, but I also get the beautiful boyfriend. I win the Miss Auto Show 1963 contest. And I also dance my butt off.